as I look back, my biggest failures have usually been being a poor judge of people at important times. And you're so dependent when you build a business on the people you surround yourself with. So I've been incredibly successful when I've had the best possible people working with me, particularly those who can complement me and are better at things than I am, and hopefully I'm better at things than they are, and the combination of us working together makes a powerful team. When I've misread a person in terms of, are they being honest in what they're giving me as feedback? Are they on board with what we're trying to do? Are they giving me good advice? Do they believe in the things that we're trying to build together? Or am I getting a lot of yes answers when the other person doesn't really feel that way? So I'd say the hardest part of business for me is what's hard for almost everyone I know, and that is, how do you deal with the people issues of business? It's one thing to say, I've got a plan and I get the theory right and I can build the models right, but ultimately business is about people. It's about the people who work with you. It's about the people who are your investors. It's about the people who are your customers. And I think that the hardest thing to learn, because you don't get this in college, you don't get it in business schools, is learning how to work with people to get things done. Whereas in college, it's about how do you compete with people to see who's the smartest kid in the class. It's such a different way of thinking about information and thinking about what you do. When you're in college, you're there to learn and to be exposed to things that you may never have heard about before. When you're in business, you're there to build. The basic reason you create companies is because you want to build something. And you build something not by yourself, but you build it with teams. And building with teams means you've got to build with people with aligned interests. So as I look at when I have been a failure at things, it's when I've misjudged the people that I needed at the most important times. When I was ambushed and I was pushed out of Apple, I had no idea that I was going to be fired from the company. We were the largest selling PC in the world, hardware product with the Mac. We had $2 billion of cash, and we were under intense competition with Microsoft Windows and Intel's Wintel platform. But I was fired because I wouldn't license the Mac technology, and because I was looking at splitting the company into the new products of the handheld devices like Newton and multimedia, and separating it out from the traditional personal computer business. And I didn't realize that the management team was not on board at all with that idea, and I didn't realize that there was unhappiness at the board level as well. So it was my failure to understand and read the situation correctly, I believe. That was a big failure on my part. When I left Apple, I was wounded. I felt humiliated. I'd never been fired before, and I overreacted because of my own pride. And that's such a dangerous thing when you let your ego and pride get ahead of your good judgment. And so the first offer that came along was a company I'd never heard of called Spectrum Information Technology. It was back on the East Coast, and I wanted to return there. That's where I'd grown up. And I didn't do the careful due diligence I should have, and I ended up joining a company where it was public, and I was no longer, I was in it for only a few weeks, only to discover that it was basically a scam, and that I'd been brought in to hype the stock, and that while they held some potentially valuable patents on data over wireless, that they've been way overhyped in value. And so I wanted to leave the company about 2 weeks after I was there, and my lawyer said, "You can't resign." And I said, "What do you mean I can't resign?" He said, "No, you can't resign. It's a public company, and the stock has been hyped to the value it is because you came. If you leave, you're going to be sued by everybody. You'll be sued by the company, you'll be sued by shareholders." And so I felt I had been trapped, and it was my own fault. It was my own pride and humiliation combined, and ego that got me to step into a even worse situation than being fired. And it took me over a decade to be able to earn my reputation back. So failures are painful when they happen, but there were a lot of things I learned from that experience of being fired by Apple and then stepping into a company that was had totally misrepresented itself to me and to its shareholders. And those are lessons which I am very careful when I get involved in businesses today to make sure that maybe I'll make mistakes, but I'm going to do everything I can not to make the same mistakes again.